What's going on, everybody? Kriddle here, back again with another Fortnite Save the World video, and this time we're going to be talking about floor traps, specifically how to perk them up, best practices to use them, where to use them, when to use them, why to use them, etc., etc. So let's jump over here to our armory, jump into our schematics, and take a look at all of our floor traps. This is every floor trap you have in the game currently. We're going to go over a couple of these very, very quickly because things like the patrol ward, it technically is a floor trap. However, it doesn't really function in a mission the same way as the other ones do. I do have a video on the patrol ward, so if you want to see that, I will have that in the description below. Definitely go and check that out. And as far as the healing traps, we have the healing pad here and the cozy campfire. I can almost say with certainty you would never want to use the healing pad over the cozy campfire. The reason for that is because of the crafting materials it takes. The healing pad does take 15 fibrous herbs and 5 bacon, which is extremely expensive for having only 8 charges of a heal that does 1156 healing in my case, which then gets multiplied out obviously in a mission. The cozy campfire, on the other hand, lasts for 60 seconds and is much cheaper at only 11 planks, some flowers, and peaky twine. So I can almost with certainty say that you should never use the healing pad over the cozy campfire, but there are situations in which this does help out. If you wanted an instant burst, they also last forever in a mission until you use up all of the charges, so you could place them down and then always run over to them and grab them. Whereas the cozy campfire is literally you throw it down, it lasts for some duration, and then it ends and it no longer is healing. So you will have to make those and use them and place them to use them as you need them during a mission. So now that we've gone over all that, let's check out the other traps that everybody is really wanting to know about in here. So let's move on to those. Okay, so first up we have our wooden floor spikes. This is a fantastic trap for one reason and one reason only, and that is because it slows the enemies who walk on it. We'll show you this in action in a moment, but let's go over some of the other perks here. I have mine set up for all damage. There's a couple different ways you could go with this. You could go for damage perks on here. You could also go with a crit rating and then a crit damage and then another crit rating and another crit damage. I would not recommend going that route because going with double crit rating is almost never the way you want to go due to diminishing returns on crit rating. You're not going to be able to get that much more out of your crit chance. So your best bet is probably to go either all damage like I have, or to go with a single crit rating, go with a crit damage here, another damage here, and then another crit damage here. If you want to get a little bit more spike damage out of it, you want to go that way, no pun intended on the spike damage. But if you wanted to get a little bit more burst damage or spike damage out of that, you could go with the double crit, single crit rating, and then 1 crit damage on there. That is one option. I'm going to go with the straight damage on mine because, like I said a minute ago, the main reason for this trap is to slow the monster, not really to damage it. So I'm just going to get a little extra damage out of it as it walks over. And as you can see here, the damage is 262.8 and the crit damage only goes up to 289.0. So, and at a 5% chance. So I'm not really that concerned with getting that bonus 27 crit damage on there, not even 27 crit damage on there. So that is how I would perk up the trap, probably keeping it all damage. As far as the final perk down here, I generally go with increased building health. Whoops, I went back one page too many there. I generally go with increased building health because if you go with these other two, they're just really not that beneficial. Durability, you already have 270 ticks of this, which you shouldn't have to worry about in most missions. In an SSD, possibly, depending on the wave, but in most missions, you're never going to run out of durability on this when it uses it. And then the healing is generally not that great because you can always run up to it and just tap that healing as you're running by. So the 14% extra building health could be the difference in something, destroying that floor trap, like a propane or something like that. So let's jump into a mission and see best uses for the wooden floor spike. All right, so I found myself a friend here to test some things out with. This is a basic trap tunnel that I'm going to be using to show you guys how some of this stuff works. So we're going to start out with the floor spike, the wooden floor spikes, and show you how this works. And then as we go through the more traps, I will show you the best practices for them. So this, assume that the monsters are all spawning over here on this side, and they're going to be coming through the trap tunnel this way towards your base. Notice that this guy gets snared as soon as he gets on that trap, and he stays snared all the way through the trap tunnel for an additional 2 tiles, and then he starts to speed up as soon as he steps out of that second tile. So knowing that, we know that we only need 1 floor spike at the beginning of a 3-tile tunnel like this, and we can put in, you know, our ceiling traps and our wall traps down here so that we get the maximum amount of damage, since the wooden floor spikes do not do the most amount of damage in the game. So that is the wooden floor spike. That's pretty much your best usage of it, is at the beginning of tunnels like that. So let's go and check out the next floor trap and see how we can add that to this this trap setup. Next up, we have the Flame Grill floor trap. This is probably my least favorite floor trap in the game due to it having the fire element up here, making it very good against nature husk, but very bad against water husk. So if you know that there's going to be nature husk in your mission, this trap could potentially be good for you. But if you're not sure what the waves are going to bring, if there's a potential that they're going to bring any water husk, you probably don't want to put these down and waste your materials on them. But just in case you do want to perk one up, let's take a look at the perks on it. I would go with effect duration on the 6 perk down here, as this is a damage over time trap, and this will increase the duration of it, making it do more damage. So this is pretty much the only option for the 6th one that I would recommend. I would also recommend having a reload speed perk here. This does have a 12-second base reload time, and having that reload speed is very nice, as 12 seconds in this game is a long time, and I've seen it multiple times where Husk are about to walk on it, or they just got off of it, and that's when the trap triggers. So I would definitely recommend putting the reload speed on here. Otherwise, you're really not going to trigger the trap often enough for it to be beneficial. For the other 3 here, I would recommend either going all damage, just 3 damage perks on there, or going 1 damage, 1 crit rating, and 1 crit damage. It doesn't matter if you put the crit rating here and the damage here, or the crit rating can go here and then a damage here. Any of those will work. The reason I say normally I would go with crit damage over just 3 damage, though, is because if you go crit damage, statistically speaking, you're going to do more damage due to the fact that it is a damage over time, and it's going to tick several times, giving you multiple chances for that crit chance. So the first tick may not go off, but the second and the third might, and the 4th tick might not. And it's going to do an increase of 135% damage if you have this at legendary, rather than just doing an extra 60% damage if you had 2 more damage slots here that would be at legendary. So that is definitely the way I would go with a flame grill trap. But let's go throw that into our trap tunnel and see how it works. All right, so I've got myself a Husky Husk here, and we're going to take him through this trap tunnel where we have the wooden floor spikes here, and then we have a flame grill trap here. So we're going to snare him first, and then see when he gets here on the flame grill trap. He's going to take an initial burst of a high damage, and then he's going to take 6 more ticks of damage after that. Notice that he takes additional damage all the way through that next tile after. So you don't necessarily want to put down 2 flame grill traps next to each other, because the damage does not stack. So he's only going to continue to have that 1 dot going on him at one time. So if you were to put a second flame grill trap here, it would do the initial damage here. The damage would tick 1 or 2 more times, then it would do another initial damage, resetting the original timer. So if you do that, it would be wasting some of the potential from this flame grill trap. So the best bet here is to do at the beginning of the trap tunnel with your wooden floor spikes, and then right after that, do a flame grill trap if you're going to use that, which will snare them all the way through the trap tunnel. and do the full amount of damage from the flame grill trap at the same time. This last spot is perfect for the retractable floor spike, which we will talk about next. All right, and here's the last of the damaging traps. This is the retractable floor spikes. This trap is a little bit unique compared to the other two because of the impact on it. This is the only of the damaging traps that has impact on it, so it does have that chance to stun or stagger monsters as they go over it, and it does impale them. But let's go and take a look at the perks on here. So this trap you can do similar to what you could do with the other ones, and you could put 4 damaging perks on here, as each one of the perk locations does have a damaging perk. But again, I would recommend putting in that single crit rating, double crit damage, and then another damage up here. And the reason for that is, as you can see, this does about 300% crit damage on it at a 35% chance. So this does a lot of crit damage, and it is a physical trap, so that it does the same amount of damage to all monsters. It's just going to be 50% less when they are elements. So you don't have to worry about it being, a fire, a nature, or a water, and doing substantially less against the opposite element. So this one will be pretty consistent with damage on anything that you use it on. Again, I go with the building health here, as we already talked about several times. Durability, not really going to be that necessary at 36 durability, and it reload at 6 seconds. I don't think it's going to be used enough to where it really is going to justify having more durability on it. And then the healing we already talked about with the being able to run by and just heal it yourself. So this building health is almost what I would always do on every one of the floor traps. But let's go into a mission and use this trap and see how it works. So we've got ourselves another buddy here, and this time we're going to try out the retractable floor spikes. I've got it set up here with a wooden floor spikes to snare them, which gives the retractable floor spikes time to reset if there's a lot of monsters coming through, and those retractable floor spikes are getting triggered often. So it gives a little bit extra time for that to happen. But let's see how this thing does. We got a 37,000 damage there. And then we got 135,000 damage there. And that's what you're looking for when you're using the retractable floor spikes, is that crit damage, which is why I like to do 2 retractable floor spikes back to back, just so you can have your best chances of getting that that crit damage to happen. If you wanted to, after the second retractable floor spike, you could put down another set of the wooden floor spikes to add that snare again, and then do another set of the retractable floor spikes. But you shouldn't really need that if you have some ceiling traps and some wall traps throughout here. All of that combined together is going to do a significant amount of damage, and these retractable floor spikes should help take out those smashers before they actually get through your entire trap tunnel, just in case the gas traps that you have up here or wall traps that you have over here do not take them out completely. So next up, we are going to take a look at the non-damaging traps, and the first of those is going to be the floor freeze trap. All right, so now we're going to start talking about the non-damaging traps. First up is going to be the floor freeze trap, and there's only 2 things you need to worry about on this trap. First is the reload time, and secondly is the impact damage. Actually, I probably should say first is the impact damage and second is the reload, because the impact damage basically means there's a certain amount of impact damage that it does to each husk as it goes over the trap, and each husk has a certain threshold of impact damage it can take before the effect takes place. In this case, it freezes the monster. So for this particular weapon at 11,834, it will freeze most of the smaller monsters the first time they go over it. A husky husk will need to go over it 2 times. I believe a smasher will need to go over it 4 times before it will freeze them. So keep that in mind as you're building this trap up. So let's take a look at our perks on here. Let's first take a look at the 6 perk. The effect duration is most likely the way you want to go with this, as this trap is meant to be a stalling tactic. You're trying to stop the husk from getting to your base. You're trying to add a little bit more time for you to eliminate the husk, and this just adds to that effect. The other possibilities on here do not really help you out that much. You could go with durability, as it is only a 24 use, but most likely, unless you have a lot of traffic coming in, the durability is not going to be a big deal, and I would not recommend going that route. So effect duration is definitely my recommendation for the 6 perk. As far as the first, third, and fifth perk, I would go with the impact and knockback, again, because the only other option on all 3 of those is durability, which is not really the way to go. That leaves only the second and third perks here. And you do have a couple of options with these. I went with double reload on mine to get that down to a 6.5 second reload speed on there, just so that I don't feel like it's taking forever for each one of those to trigger. You could go potentially with a little bit more knockback or impact and knockback if you wanted to try to stop a Husky Husk the first time it went over the trap, or a Smasher the second or third time it went over the trap. But most likely you're going to get more usage out of this if you have the reload speed down to 6.5 seconds rather than 12. Or I think if it's just one of these, it would be like 8 seconds or so reload speed on there. So I definitely recommend going in this direction. Again, if you wanted to add a little bit more impact, go with the impact. But let me show you how this trap works in game, so you can see which way you may want to go. All right, so here we are. I have another friend. We're going to test out these floor freeze traps. Notice I have 2 of them down because for a Husky Husk, it does take 2 triggers of this trap before they will be frozen. So as you see right there, he got frozen on the second one. So what you would really want to do in the situation of this is put down 2 of these if you're trying to stop the monsters from getting into your base. So you assume right here, the monsters are spawning this way and they're coming towards our base over here. You would want to funnel them down this way and into your freeze traps. But I will note that if you build a trap tunnel like this, and you freeze a Smasher inside of this trap tunnel, they can take up most of the tunnel and prevent Husk from coming through it. So you want to be careful doing that inside of trap tunnels like this one. I'm also going to show you really quickly something else that a lot of people do, and I see a lot of people do, that for some reason does not work as well as you would think. And that is where they build these rooms, these timeout rooms. And you would think it would work fantastically, but for whatever reason, it doesn't. So if you build a timeout room like this, we'll get him to freeze one more time here because he did take 1 hit from the freeze trap, and he should take another freeze trap hit here, and there he goes. He just took another freeze trap here. Now let's try to put on and make these timeout rooms here. We're going to put in we're going to put in a wall launcher there to try to knock him into that room and create a timeout room. These are very, very popular, but they do not seem to work. See how he got knocked in there and he's laying down and he was going to get frozen, right? Well, he didn't get frozen. So now if we hit the other one, the next one, let's see if he gets frozen this time. Again, did not get frozen. So this would not really be very beneficial to you in a timeout room. This does not work. And I believe it is because the impact from the wall launcher works with the impact from the floor freeze trap, and they just do not stack. So we're using up all of that impact damage, and it's resetting while he's getting up. So that is not the best use of these. And that's why I don't really like using floor freeze traps, but they can be nice as a delaying tactic. If you put 2 or 3 of them in a row, you can consistently freeze everything that would be coming into your base. So next up, let's go talk about the floor trap, and then we'll try that out in a mission. The floor launcher trap, and then we'll try that out in a mission. All right, here we are at the final trap, the floor launcher. This trap works very similarly to the floor freeze trap. And the only things you really need to worry about on this are the reload time and the impact. As you can see, the impact on here is nearly double as it is on the floor freeze trap, meaning that it's going to most likely knock up anything that walks on it the first time it walks on it, except for a smasher. Generally, that takes 2 times if it's a high level smasher. So you do want to keep that in mind when you're building this trap. But let's take a look at our perks. We're first going to look at the bottom one here. There is not an effect duration on this trap, so we're going to go with the increased building health. You could potentially go with durability here if you wanted to, as it is a low durability trap with 24 uses on there. And at a 4.3 second reload speed, it does get used quite often and very quickly. But this is mostly used when it's at a base. And I'll show you how that works when we get into a mission. But you're going to be using this at the base, and you don't really want that many monsters getting to the base. So most likely you're not going to have to worry about that too much. The durability will probably not get used unless it's, again, a very, very heavy traffic area. So let's take a look at the other perks up here. Very much like the floor freeze trap, the first, the third, and the fifth trap only have 2 options with the impact and knockback and durability. So I would definitely go with the impact and knockback, getting this as high as possible. And then the second and fourth perks here, you can go with the reload speed, impact and knockback, or durability. Again, just like the floor freeze trap. I go with the reload speed on both of these so that we do get that reload as low as possible, and this can be used as much as possible. You could, if you needed to, add in a little bit more impact on here, but adding in that impact is not going to be very beneficial to this trap because, like I said, it's going to knock every monster that comes across it up into the air except for those really high level miss monsters like a smasher. That will take 2 times whether you have the extra impact on here or not in most cases. So let's jump into a mission and see how this trap works out. So we've got ourselves another Husky Husk here, and we have a little base that I've built up around this Atlas, and this is generally how I build most of my base builds, is with these 45-degree walls, and then I put down these floor launchers here because I believe this is probably the best use of a floor launcher in the game, which keeps monsters off of your base. When they're trying to attack these 45-degree walls, it would just knock them up and into or out of your base. And you could put, vertical walls. You couldn't do that on an Atlas, but you can do that normally on most other bases. You can put some vertical walls there with a wall launcher, but the problem with that is that smashers will actually charge those vertical walls, but they will not charge these 45-degree walls. So this works as the same function as a wall launcher would without allowing smashers to charge it, and smashers will also get knocked up and away from the base. Another use for these floor launchers here is you can actually use them right here in conjunction with a wall launcher, and you can knock them up into a 45-degree wall that is up 1 tile high, and that will also work to knock them off. Let's see if we can do that here. I don't know which one of these is going to go off. There it goes. It did the floor launcher first. It knocks them up into that wall and off the side here, and you can knock them down cliffs and make them walk all the way back up and around, which is another fantastic use for the floor launcher. And you can use that in conjunction with the wall launcher like this. So if they were coming, through here to get to your base that may be over this way, they would have to pass both of these before they would get to that. And you could do that, several times like so. You could do, multiple of those. So they would have to walk by several different floor launchers before they would eventually get to your base. The last way to use these floor launchers is right here with nothing at all around them. You can actually make these husks go up into the air and they take fall damage just like you would. So you don't need to put any ceiling above them. They're just going to fly straight up, come back down, take a little bit of damage, and they take so long to get back up that usually it resets and will launch them a second time. So that is a great stalling tactic that you can use when you're having trouble in a mission. Put a couple of these down and it will stall the monsters from being able to get to your base. There he goes again, one more time, and he should be eliminated from the map here. Boom, there he goes. So there you have it. Those are the floor traps in the game. That is how I use them and some of the best ways to use them. If you have any questions, you're welcome to come by my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/criddlecraddle. I do stream 6 days a week, every day except for Friday. I'm often on Save the World, and I can show you guys some more tips. So please feel free to come on by. And until next time, have a good day, and I will see you later.